Coming live from the studio, this is All Sports with Gerardo. Thank you for watching another episode of All Sports. This is your host Gerardo, and all I talk is sports. On the show today, I am going to talk about NFL football, Major League Baseball, and NBA basketball. Before I start the show, I hope you all had a great week. To start off with Major League Baseball, Charlie Morton and the Braves have agreed to a one-year contract. So now that we are in December and we are going into winter, watch out what happens in Major League Baseball with free agency. Free agency has already begun in the last few weeks back in November, but now that we are going into the winter months, this is when free agency is going to take off. So on the next All Sports with Gerardo show, I will update you with the current free agents that are on the market. And we're going to have to wait and see what teams sign these free agents. But there are definitely some big names that are on this year's free agent market, and it's definitely going to be interesting to see what team they sign with. Moving on now to NFL football, Tom Brady has reached 3,000 passing yards in a season for the 18th time, which is tied with Hall of Famer Brett Favre for the most in NFL history. Aaron Rodgers became the 11th quarterback to reach 50,000 career passing yards. In 42 career games, Patrick Mahomes has 4 games with 400 plus passing yards, 3 plus touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Russell Wilson has the most wins by any quarterback in NFL history through 9 seasons. Deshaun Watson has surpassed Peyton Manning and Hall of Famer Johnny Unitas for the 4th most touchdown passes in NFL history by a player in his first 50 career games. 8 wide receivers were taken ahead of DK Metcalf in the 2019 NFL Draft. In this season, he leads the NFL in reception yards. Derrick Henry has 7 career games with 150 plus rushing yards and 2 plus touchdowns. Antonio Gibson became the first rookie with 3 touchdowns on Thanksgiving since Randy Moss in 1998. Antonio Gibson became the first running back with 3 touchdowns and 100 plus rushing yards on Thanksgiving since Barry Sanders in 1997. Aaron Donald is the second defensive tackle in NFL history with 10 plus sacks in at least 5 of their first 7 seasons. The Packers are the second team since the merger to score 40 plus points against all of their division opponents in a single season. The Lions fired head coach Matt Patricia and general manager Bob Quinn. The Jaguars fired general manager Dave Conwell. The NFL fined the Saints $500,000, and the NFL took the Saints' 7th-round draft pick for not wearing masks during their post-game celebrations after the Saints-Buccaneers game. Texans wide receiver Will Fuller has been suspended for the rest of this season in the first game of next season for a PED violation. The NFL announced the 49ers will play their next 2 home games at State Farm Stadium in Arizona. So if everything that's going on in regards to the coronavirus pandemic, especially in the Bay Area cannot let the 49ers practice or play any games at their home stadium. So for the foreseeable future, possibly even for the rest of this season, the 49ers have relocated to Arizona, and they will practice and play their home games at State Farm Stadium, which is the home of the Arizona Cardinals down in Phoenix. So the Cardinals, their divisional rival in the NFC West, decided they would let the 49ers play their home games at their stadium down in Arizona, since they cannot play at their stadium in the Bay Area. We'll just have to wait and see how long the 49ers have to stay in Arizona, but it's very likely, with only a month left of the regular season, that the 49ers will play the rest of their season in Arizona, and we'll have to wait and see if they make the playoffs. But as of right now, the 49ers will be in Arizona for the next few weeks. Garrett Bowles and the Broncos have agreed to a 4-year contract extension. Outside linebacker Malik Reed leads all undrafted players with 6.5 sacks through Week 11. The Broncos lost to the Saints 31-3 in Denver on Sunday, November 29th. So this Broncos-Saints game was an interesting game, not because of the final score. It was because the Broncos did not have a quarterback for this game, and actually, the Broncos quarterback for this Saints game was a practice squad wide receiver. And wide receiver Kendall Hilton was the Broncos quarterback for the Saints game. Now, if you take a look at the game, the score wasn't great. The performance on offense, especially, and even on defense, wasn't that great. And Kendall Hilton's performance wasn't that great either. There wasn't really nothing pretty about this game. But the one thing, regardless of the outcome of this game, was that the Broncos could count on Kendall Hilton to step up. There's no doubt that Kendall Hilton didn't play that great, even though he had the opportunity to start at the quarterback position for a Broncos game and come from being a practice squad wide receiver to a starting quarterback. Now, Kendall Hilton was probably definitely nervous, and his performance definitely showed that. But the one thing that the Broncos and the rest of the NFL could be proud about for Kendall Hilton is that he was able to step into a big role overnight. He didn't have a whole week to prepare. He didn't have a few days to prepare for this game. He had to step up and be ready overnight to play at the quarterback position for the Broncos Saints game. So regardless of how Kendall Hilton played, regardless of how the Broncos played in this Saints game, all they can do is congratulate Kendall Hilton for stepping into a big role overnight. Now, the reason why the Broncos didn't have a quarterback was because of the coronavirus. And their quarterbacks were not following the COVID-19 protocols after backup quarterback Jeff Driscoll was in close contact with someone that had COVID-19, and he possibly could have had gotten COVID-19. We don't know 100%. But because the other quarterbacks were not following the COVID-19 protocols, which includes Drew Lock and the rest of the backup quarterbacks, they all had to sit out for this Saints game. Now going forward, the Broncos and the rest of the NFL doesn't want this to happen. So the Broncos decided that practice squad quarterback Blake Bortles will stay at home for the rest of the season. And if something like this were to happen again, the Broncos will have Blake Bortles be their starting quarterback. But the Broncos hope that they can have Drew Lock be their starting quarterback for the rest of the season. Now many will ask, well, why did they not postpone this game and move it to a different day like they've had with other NFL games? Now, there's two reasons to this. Number one, because the Broncos, especially the quarterbacks, were not following the COVID-19 protocols, the NFL just wanted the Broncos to suffer, and that was their punishment. Number two, because it wasn't a great matchup, because it wasn't a game that determined if the Broncos were going to get into the playoffs or it wasn't a game that was going to make them contend for the playoffs, and it wasn't a great matchup since Drew Brees wasn't even playing for the Saints, and because the Broncos haven't been such a great team, that could have been another reason. If this would have been a Broncos-Saints game, when the Broncos had Peyton Manning as their quarterback, there's no doubt that they would have postponed this game, because a Peyton Manning-Drew Brees game would have been a great game, just like it was when the Broncos went against the Saints when Peyton Manning was the quarterback. But my prediction was that the NFL wanted the Broncos to suffer because they weren't following the COVID-19 protocols, and they knew it wasn't a great matchup, especially at the quarterback position, and they knew it was kind of a meaningless game for the Broncos since they are not contending for the playoffs. But because the NFL has postponed other games, no matter the matchup or no matter the teams that are going against each other, why couldn't they postpone this Broncos-Saints game if they have postponed every other NFL game? That's a question that remains to be unanswered by the NFL. But at the end of the day, the Broncos were able to get through this game, even though they lost 31-3 against the Saints. But the Broncos know they do not want this situation to happen again, regardless if it's because of COVID-19 or it's not. The Broncos and the rest of the NFL, when they play an NFL game, they need to have a quarterback. They cannot have a different position player play at the quarterback position, and they at least need a backup quarterback. So the Broncos definitely don't want this to happen ever again, and the rest of the 31 NFL teams don't want this to happen to them either. So hopefully this never happens again to the Broncos or to any other team in the rest of the NFL, because regardless of what team you are, the quarterback position is the most important position, especially on offense. And how can you play a game and not have a quarterback? Even though other position players can step up into the quarterback position, you always need a quarterback, especially if you have quarterbacks on your roster. The Broncos go against the Chiefs in Kansas City on Sunday, December 6th. This is the 13th week of NFL football. So right now I'm going to update you with the Week 12 NFL football final scores. I'm also going to tell you the Week 13 NFL football schedule and the games to keep an eye on this week in NFL football. So to start off, here are the Week 12 final scores and highlights from this week of NFL football. The Texans beat the Lions 41-25 on Thanksgiving. Washington beat the Cowboys 41-16 on Thanksgiving. The Patriots beat the Cardinals 20-17. The Vikings beat the Panthers 28-27. The Browns beat the Jaguars 27-25. The Titans beat the Colts 45-26. The Giants beat the Bengals 19-17. The Bills beat the Chargers 27-17. The 49ers beat the Rams 23-20. The Saints beat the Broncos 31-3. The Chiefs beat the Buccaneers 27-24. The Steelers beat the Ravens 19-14. The Packers beat the Bears 41-25 on Sunday Night Football. And the Seahawks beat the Eagles 23-17 on Monday Night Football. Now taking a look at Week 13, here are the matchups to keep an eye on this week in NFL football. The Browns vs. the Titans, the Colts vs. the Texans, the Lions vs. the Bears, the Saints vs. the Falcons, the Rams vs. the Cardinals, the Patriots vs. the Chargers, the Broncos vs. the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football, the Cowboys vs. the Ravens on Monday Night Football, the Bills vs. the 49ers on Monday Night Football. This week, it's the Buccaneers and the Panthers bye week. So that's the Week 12 final scores and the Week 13 schedule for NFL football. So right now I'm going to update you with the current division standings in the AFC and NFC. To start off in the AFC, in the AFC East, right now the Bills are leading this division at 8 games, and the next closest team is the Dolphins at 7 games. In the AFC South, right now the Titans are leading this division at 8 games, and the next closest team is the Colts at 7 games. In the AFC North, right now the Steelers are leading this division at 11 games. They are also the last undefeated team in the NFL this season, and the next closest team to the Steelers is the Browns at 8 games. In the AFC West, right now the Chiefs are leading this division at 10 games, and the next closest team is the Raiders at 6 games. In the NFC West, right now the Seahawks are leading this division at 8 games, and the next closest team is the Rams at 7 games. In the NFC South, right now the Saints are leading this division at 9 games, and the next closest team is the Buccaneers at 7 games. In the NFC East, right now the Giants and Washington are tied for this division at 4 games. And in the NFC North, right now the Packers are leading this division at 8 games. So that's the current division standings in the AFC and NFC. Moving on now to NBA basketball. Now that we are in December and the off season's about to come to an end, it is now time for the 2020-2021 NBA season to begin in the next couple weeks. In a little bit, I will update you of everything that has happened so far this off season with free agency and with trades that have happened, and it's definitely going to be interesting for this season. With what has happened during free agency and with trades, there are definitely some teams to keep an eye on, and teams that are contending for the playoffs and teams that are contending for an NBA championship, which includes the Lakers after winning last season's NBA championship. Teams like the Lakers that are competing for the playoffs and competing for an NBA championship. All those teams even got better and improved their team this off season. Now we're going to have to wait and see if the Lakers can win back-to-back NBA championships after winning the championship last season. But what the Lakers have done this off season, if you take a look at the roster they're going to have for this season compared to the roster they had last season when they won the championship, the Lakers roster for this season even looks better. And there is a great possibility the Lakers will get back to the playoffs and possibly win another NBA championship and win back-to-back NBA championships. We're going to have to wait and see if they can do that, but there's no doubt the Lakers improved their team and their team even looks better for this season. And there were many other teams across the NBA in the Eastern and Western Conference that improved their team this offseason through free agency. Now taking a look at the 2020-2021 season, preseason games are from December 11th through the 19th. The regular season starts on December 22nd. The NBA All-Star break is from March 5th to the 10th. The play-in tournament is from May 18th through the 21st. The playoffs began on May 22nd, and the season will end towards the end of July. Now the NBA plans on playing an entire NBA season for the 2020-2021 season. This season might look a little bit different, but the NBA is hoping that for next season they can start it when they usually start NBA seasons, and that it can play and be formatted just like many other previous seasons. Now it's going to be great if the NBA can play this 2020-2021 season, but there's no doubt it's going to look different and be played and formatted different because of the coronavirus pandemic, and we're going to have to wait and see when fans will be allowed at arenas for NBA games. But so far, the NBA will start the season with no fans in the stands at the arenas for NBA games, but the NBA is hoping that they can have fans at the arenas for NBA games later on this season. And once we get into 2021, we're going to have to wait and see if that happens, but at least there will be a 2020-2021 NBA season. The NBA teams will not play in a bubble like they did last season in Orlando when the season got resumed. They will play at their arena, but the one thing that's going to be different is there will be no fans in the stands, and all the fans are going to have to watch all the NBA games on TV. But the NBA is hoping they can have fans at the arenas later on this season. But it's going to come down to how the coronavirus pandemic plays out going into 2021. The 2020-2021 season will not have an All-Star game or All-Star festivities, but there will still be an All-Star break. So that will be another thing that is different about this season. But this season will start in December, and this season will end this summer towards the end of July. Now, taking a look at free agency, this is what's happened so far during free agency. LeBron James and the Lakers have agreed to a 2-year contract extension. Anthony Davis and the Lakers have agreed to a 5-year contract extension. Haslam Whiteside and the Kings have agreed to a 1-year contract. Now, looking at trades, this is what's happened so far with trades. The Rockets traded Russell Westbrook to the Wizards in exchange for John Wall and a first-round draft pick. The Suns traded Kelly Oubre, Ricky Rubio, Ty Jermo, Jalen Leakey, and a 2022 first-round draft pick to the Thunder in exchange for Chris Paul and Abdul Nader. The Pelicans traded Drew Holiday to the Bucks in exchange for Eric Bledsoe, George Hill, and 3 first-round draft picks. The Rockets traded Robert Covington to the Trailblazers in exchange for Trevor Ariza, the 16th pick in the 2020 draft, and a 2021 first-round draft pick. The Thunder traded Steven Adams to the Pelicans. The Lakers traded JaVale McGee and a second-round draft pick to the Cavaliers. The Lakers traded Danny Green and the 28th pick in the draft to the Thunder in exchange for Dennis Schroeder. The 76ers traded Al Horford, a first and second round draft pick, to the Thunder in exchange for Danny Green. The Mavericks traded Seth Curry to the 76ers in exchange for Josh Richardson. So far, that's what's happened during free agency and with trades. We're going to have to wait and see if anything else happens in regards to free agency and trades as we approach the beginning of the 2020-2021 season. Moving on now to the show, what to watch for this week in sports. The Broncos go against the Chiefs in Kansas City on Sunday, December 6th. The Broncos, NFL football, college football. Moving on now, on the next show, I will talk about NFL football, Major League Baseball, and NBA basketball. I hope you all have a great week. Tune in to the next All Sports with Gerardo show next week. I want to say thank you to everybody that listens to All Sports. Subscribe or like my pages on social media at All Sports with Gerardo. Until next time, this is Gerardo.